Welcome to Taking It to the Streets. I'm your host, Andy Goldman from sunny St. Pete, Florida. This is the show where we take it to the streets, knowing if we don't, the streets will take it to us. Welcome to Taking It to the Streets. It's Andy Goldman. It's a pleasure to have our listeners being able to listen, watch us now on YouTube. This episode brought to you, of course, by Wrightwood Medical, your leader in used medical equipment. An old friend drops in today, Rich Beem.
Wait a second, used medical equipment?
Yes.
Wait. I don't want to go anywhere there's anything used about it. It's like buying a used car. I don't know how that person drove that car beforehand. No, thank you. I want new medical equipment. But if they're paying you a lot of money, then I'm fine with it.
I love it. So our old buddy Rich Beem drops in on us today. And of course, needs no introduction. Go back, listen to Rich on podcasts of the past. From last year when Rich came in, we talked a lot about the Tour Championship and we made picks and the whole bit. So we're grateful for Rich to come back. Rich, what's up, man? Before the jab into Wrightwood Medical, it's nice to see you.
And no offense, folks. Listen, he's doing a great job. Keep supporting him. Keep sending him checks. No, everything's good. I'm just sitting here in Augusta, Georgia, getting ready for the week to start. Went out to the golf course for about 4 or 5 hours today. Got rained out. And so some of the things I was supposed to do didn't take place. So tomorrow and Wednesday are going to be a little bit more crammed than I originally expected it to be. But other than that, it's nice to have an easy kind of day like today going into this week because it's always a long week. Everybody says, oh, you have to go back to Augusta. How terrible. Like, folks, when I come to Augusta, I'm working. I'm not running around drinking all the beers, the azaleas and walking home with, 16 green cups in my hand. I actually have
pink lemonade with
pink lemonade. Exactly. So, for me, it's work. And granted, there's worse places in the world to work by any stretch of imagination, but there's a lot going on here. It's a big old facility, big property. So getting point A to point B is never that easy. And so, it just kind of wears on you a little bit. They've got the rules and regulations that you absolutely have to abide by. This is the one place on the planet that you can never ask for forgiveness and think you're going to get it. You always have to ask permission, no matter what. So, yeah, but Augusta National, but it's been like this for years. And I think as I've gotten a little bit older, I've grown to respect it a little bit more. I just saw the press conference that the chairman of Augusta, Fred Ridley, he did, and they're doing some amazing things here in Augusta with rebuilding the municipal golf course here called the Patch. Tiger Woods is going to have another one of his kind of biggest campuses here. He's got one in Southern California, just opened one in Philadelphia. He's going to open another one in LA, and they're going to have open one here in 2028. And so there's some really big things going on here. I think the thing that I like about it the most, Andy, is the fact that they're actually telling the community what they're doing and how they're being involved. It's not just kind of like underneath the rug and hush, this and that. And we're not just cutting a check. They're going out to look at the Patch. They have all these great plans to get involved with the community, but they're sharing all that information too. Not just kind of secret handshakes and things like that. And like not anything, doing anything illegal, but everything was kind of internal. You never understood or never heard what Augusta National is doing. And now you're starting to hear these things under Fred Ridley as the chairman. I think it's great. I think it's great for the community. I think it makes Augusta National look a little bit warmer, a little bit more hospitable. They've always been great, but it just kind of makes them feel human, because there's all these captains of industry that, you don't really get a chance to meet or hang out with very often. But now it just feels like, you have something to chat about when you're not like, hey, how about this new deal, the Patch you guys are working on? And I just think it's great. A lot of really cool things happen this week. But again, it's a long week for me just for work-wise. But listen, there's worse places in the world I could be stuck.
No, of course. And what's funny, when I heard you just talk about the transparency and how much you like that, I forgive you, but I almost felt like, is that a jab of sorts? Not a jab, but just a comment about maybe how Eastlake wasn't run, because it feels like Eastlake was a place that came in, a bowl in a china shop, ripped the place on. And I understand the Eastlake story very well. That was a project that was very, very low. So I didn't know if that was where a core.
No, I wouldn't say, no, it wasn't a jab by any stretch of imagination. I think it's just the fact that, My first Masters was in 2003, and that's when Martha Burke came and she was protesting outside the gates because there was no female members at Augusta National at the time. And how they kind of handled it, how Chairman Hootie Johnson handled it, it was like, we're going to do everything in our own sweet time, which I enjoyed about that. I mean, I thought that's exactly what he should have said. I think, though, but you never really got an insight onto what Augusta was doing, within the city of Augusta. I mean, they started the Latin American Amateur, the Asian Pacific Amateur, things like that, having more amateurs, giving them an opportunity to qualify for the Masters, which I think something that Bobby Jones would have loved to have seen. But I think as far as the community goes, I mean, you always know that they're giving back to the community. But now that we're kind of hearing about it, I think it gives a lot of people a little bit more interest in it. It's because, it's kind of like the old E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen, and people may stop and they, for all the old folks who remember that commercial, there you go. But yeah, I just think
it was more along that lines versus an Eastlake reference.
Yeah. And so I just think it was more about just, what Augusta National is doing, what Chairman Ridley has kind of focused on. And again, I think that, him verbalizing it, and he made a comment in there, I can't remember exactly what it was, but him actually verbalizing what they're doing and being more transparent about their activities, I thought was amazing, because that's one thing that Augusta National really never has been. They've never been super transparent. No, they'll never have a list of members, even though you kind of know who they are. If you come to this tournament, you can see, Roger Goodell walking around the green jacket, Lynn Swan. You can see captains of industry walking around in green jackets. Some of them who I know, and some of them I couldn't tell you who are, or what they did. But you know that they're doing something pretty special to be a member at Augusta National.
Definitely. It's funny, you alluded to it about your first one was in 2003, and I was thinking about that woman. Was it
Martha Burke? Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, listen, I can't remember somebody's name from that I met five.
It was like National Organization for Women, and I remember the whole thing, and it's amazing that was your first Masters. Yeah. Rich, you played in 5 Masters from 2003 to 2007.
Yep.
I was looking at your numbers earlier today, and is it fair to say that it was, of course you're the most known for winning the PGA, but by the numbers, it feels like Augusta was where you had your most success as majors go. You made 3 out of the 5 cuts.
Yeah.
You're 15th in 2003.
The funny thing about it, though, is this golf course scares the bejesus out of me. Like, I literally would show up terrified. I never felt so inept, inadequate. There's probably a slew of words that I'm forgetting.
Amateurish.
I felt amateurish every time I stepped on property, because I looked at the golf course, and off the tee, I was okay. And then as I got closer to the green, I realized I'm a little bit out of my element here. I didn't have a really keen short game. When I was younger, I used to be able to putt the lights out of it. And then as I got a little bit older, started thinking too much about it. But this golf course really got into my head. But what it did do, though, is it made me double down on my focus. And I can tell you this, I walked away from Augusta National when I played the 3 years that I played 4 rounds. I literally wasn't, I wasn't worth much of anything. I was like Play-Doh for like 3 days afterwards, because there was nothing there. I had nothing more left to give of my mind or my body. And so every time I left here, I always felt like it was a sense of accomplishment to play all 4 rounds. And as I've gotten more into this side of the business, commentating for Sky Sports Golf, it's gotten interesting, because I watched some of these players, how they're able to go out and shoot 66, 65 and whatnot. I never broke 70, Andy. Never once broke 70. And this golf course it was a beast, and it still is a beast. But it's, in saying that, the first time I ever commentated was in 2015 for CBS doing feature groups. And I got to watch Jordan Spieth basically all week long. And if anybody ever wants to learn or understand how to play Augusta National, watch his performance in 2015. It's brilliant. It's absolutely it was the most perfect way to play Augusta National. And I even say that, in lieu of Tiger back in 1997. I think it's the way Jordan, when he would get out of position, he put himself right back in position. It was just unbelievable.
Walk us through Spieth in 15 a little bit. So what was so special? Was it the mitigation of danger where he did get himself back to the good graces of
Absolutely.
getting back on the fairway? Almost a little bit of respect that you have to pay the course.
And he would, and he would position himself like, I remember one time, I think it was on the weekend, pin on 13, for example, was front left. And the only way to get it close is, if you have to go in with either a mid iron or be able to hit a 5 wood/7 wood straight up in the air. He couldn't quite get it home, or if he could, he'd be hitting 3 wood and be roasting it and come in low and hot. So what he did was, though, is he actually took out a long iron and hit it out to the right, just perfectly pin high, but it was across Race Creek. And then from there, it was probably the simplest pitch shot that he could have. Most guys would lay back to a number that they like, 80, 90 yards, something like that. He got it up there right next to the green where he had just the simplest of pitch shots. He played an aggressive layup that put him in. You couldn't have walked it out there any better. But I mean, just some of the places where he would land the ball was just perfection. And I think that he's got the scoring record, or at least tied it in 2015. But it was so meticulously perfect of where he would place his golf ball in every hole, completely taking out the danger on a second shot or a third shot. Tee shots may not always be perfect, but he just was, it was unbelievable. It was a work of art. And he is, it was, I remember so many shots that he hit. Pin was front right on 11, and he hit his second shot just short of the green. But like I said, the pin was 25 on and 4 for the right. There's a hump right over there that you have to carry, which is about 12 on. So he hit it just over that hump, but short of the green. And he was never going to go after the pin. And he certainly wasn't going to bail out, but he took one less club and hit an aggressive shot, knowing full well it's going to come up, 15, 18 feet short. But like, who does that? Most people try and take another club and fit it in there somehow. Not him. It was phenomenal.
Where do you fall, Beemer, in the Masters place in the history books with the other majors? There's a group of bandits that say that it's the lesser of them all because it's an invitational, basically. You're going to let the old codgers have their moment from the past and tee off and be part of the field, so to speak. If this is by no means the Open or the U.S. Open, you've played them all. It's no disrespect to the Masters. You know where I'm going with it.
No.
Is there truth to that?
Here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing. I forget who I was talking to, and it might have been Paul McGinley. We're talking about how people rank the majors, because every year somebody's going to come out with it. They'll rank the majors, and everybody puts Augusta number one. And it's beyond belief. But here's the reality of it. Most golfers, with the exception of a handful of guys, really, we don't get our choice of which one we're going to win. It's not like you wake up and you say, well, I'm going to go win the Masters this week because I'm playing it better. No, because you never know what's going to happen. The tournament finds you more than anything else. Like the golf course at Hazeltine found me, and I showed up to him like, oh my God, I love this place. This place is right up my alley. But I had no successes in the major before that. I knew that the Masters was something that I probably would never win, even after coming here, because I just never felt comfortable with the golf course. What I'm trying to say is that I don't think that if you ask a professional golfer which one would they want to win the most of them would say any of them. Any of them.
Interesting. That's what I thought he would say.
I think that, Gary Player's got an interesting take on it. He ranks Masters number 4. I think he ranks the Open Championship, then the PGA, funny enough, and then the U.S. Open and the Masters. But that's just Gary Player. I think that the PGA is, I know the PGA is the strongest field of them all. I think there's certain players like Tommy Fleetwood, I know for a fact, would dearly love to win the Claret Jug, would like to win the Open Championship. But listen, if Tommy Fleetwood doesn't win the Open, but he wins a PGA or a Masters or a U.S. Open, he's not going to fret about it. It's not like he's going to be like, oh, I didn't win the Open, that one got away from me. Like, once you win a major, your life changes. It truly does.
When do you know you're great? When do you know that you're a professional golfer? I know, pretty blunt question. Like, when do you know that I know you're a humble guy, you don't call yourself great, but you were great. You won a major, you played on tour. When do you know the spirit of that question? When do you know? Is it with friends at a public muni where you're really, because that's what's so cool about golf is it is at the muni, it is at the public level. It's an amateur.
I think it's, yeah, I think you get there by the desire to beat everyone you come up against. Like you're not afraid to go out there and beat people, especially in tournaments or even, a money game. I think Scotty Scheffler talks about all the time. He hates to lose, and it's amazing to be world number one and 2 major championships, and he hates to lose. Tiger Woods hates to lose. That's the one thing that these guys all have is they hate to lose. I hated to lose. I never want to lose money. I never want to lose tournaments, but I never thought that I could win them all either. But I think that where guys understand that how good they truly are, Andy, is just when you have that level of competition and you're beating everybody and you just sense that, you know what, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to take it to the next level. I'm not afraid of the spotlight. I'm not afraid of the situation. If you get me anywhere near the lead, I'm going to press on and I want it even more. And I think that's what makes the great players great. I know that's what carried me onto the PGA. People ask me about Tiger Woods. I said, I promise you, I wasn't thinking about Tiger Woods. I was thinking about me and this golf course and how I can best tackle this thing. I just, I happened to handle the golf course better than anybody else that week, and he finished runner up. But it was between me and that golf course for the most part. But I just, you get certain players that just aren't afraid of any situation. And I think that's the biggest key. That's what separates the guys that do very well versus the guys that are great.
Do you have to gamble on golf? Give me the honest answer. Do you have to gamble on golf prior to ascending to the PGA? Now let me just clarify that. So that means if you are an aspiring amateur and you go out with like amateurs, you guys are all steps away, Corn Ferry-ish level guys, do you have to play for 5, 10, 15 grand? And I'm not talking about 5, 10, $15 in order to know the pain and or the glory of making a putt and having it hurt, or isn't that part of it?
It is, but you don't have to play for that amount of money either, though. I mean, you don't have to play for all of that. I mean, losing hurts, right? I mean, like, I don't want to whip out a couple $100 and give it to anybody. And neither does anybody on tour. Nobody wants to sit there. And some guys like to play for more money than others guys do. As Michael Jordan famously said, what do you want to play for today? Because anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. Listen, there's a lot of numbers that make me uncomfortable, but I think that you do have to gamble. It doesn't have to be an extraordinary amount. I mean, for me, I was in money games where I couldn't cover it, kind of like Lee Trevino. I didn't have the money. I was making $432 every 2 weeks, and I'm just out there playing for a couple, $200-300 every time I teed off. I'm like going, if things go wrong today, I don't know how I'm going to pay.
Right.
So you have to be comfortable enough to make the bets, and no matter what it is, that it'll hurt you, But I think, after a while though, I mean, because, there's very few guys I think that Maverick or McNeil is probably the only guy that I know who comes from a wealth of money, but he still made it out here and he's grinding away, he's chipping away, and it matters to him. It means everything to him. And that's just because he's got the heart, he wants to win. It means a lot. So he doesn't really need to gamble a whole lot to get, because losing money to him, or I perceive that, but it's not going to sting. I think it's got to hurt you a little bit, like meaning, guys that I played golf with, they knew I didn't have a whole lot of money. So they kept it, somewhat in the realm of, even if I lost $50, that's still not going to feel very good. But if I won $50, oh my God, it was great. So
how common was it, or is it, for people that we know of that are on tour right now? Doesn't have to even be this tour. Tours have passed before, even when they go out now. Do they play for money out there? Is that a? See, we're curious about that. Like, do they? What do they?
Yeah, I think there's guys that play for a little bit out there. I mean, it's probably not much. I mean, it's probably say $100 three ways, right?
Okay.
And it's just they're playing for dinners. They're playing for basically for a dinner and a nice bottle of wine. But yeah, I think there's guys that play a little bit for money out here still. I mean, I'd be surprised if they didn't. I truly don't know what guys play for. I know that, Mickelson will get a game, and it's always, a pretty decent number.
Beemer, I got to cut you up there. Where do you fall in the Mickelson? I mean, if you read the Bill Walters book, do you know about the story? Do you know about the?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
Okay. It was. I want to. Because I'd love to know A, if you know Bill Walters. B, you don't know. You don't know.
I read the book.
It's okay. So did I. I know Bill Walters. Bill Walters is God when it comes to gambling. Simple as that. I mean, to anybody who's ever bet a game, Bill Walters is the Tiger Woods or the Jack Nicklaus, to give our viewers just a precursor of who he is. Here's my take on the book. Well, I'd love to get yours. Bill makes a very strong case, A, for his innocence and his philanthropic nature, which he documented extremely well, I thought, in the book.
Yeah.
And he makes a horrible case for Phil.
Sure. Absolutely.
Not with tons of words, but with innuendo, and you make up your own mind. So is that a good synopsis of what?
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. Absolutely. I think it's perfect. Yeah. I think that Mickelson got away with, a decent amount in that whole conundrum when it came to insider trading and things like that. Listen, there's stories abound about, when Phil is with Titleist, and then he switches from Titleist to Callaway a month before the Ryder Cup one year, supposedly because of a gambling debt, and somebody got him out of trouble and things like that. I mean, again, they're just stories. I mean, I don't know what the exact truth is, but I think what Billy Walters did was kind of show that he feels like he got burned by Phil. I like what you had to say, though. He puts a lot of innuendos in there. I'm not privy to any of what happened. I know what I've heard over the years, and sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm trying to be delicate about this, just because it's a long story. I can share it with you all.
Well, I didn't mean to take you down that kind of road. I just
It does not. But I think, yeah, I think that I think that Beemer here probably was a little bit, was it the wrong? And I think Billy Walters got a bad deal, to a point. But I mean, they both got information they shouldn't have.
Here's my take of where my brain was thinking on the Mickelson. Growing up, I looked at Phil versus Tiger. I don't know if it was in a racial way that I was looking at it now that I look back on it, but I almost saw it as good versus evil. I thought that Phil was the good guy and Tiger was the bad guy. Now that I've gotten older and I've read Bill Walters' book, I see it oppositely. So that's I feel like Santa Claus. Like when I read Bill Walters' book, that I got to realize that Santa Claus doesn't exist for the second time.
So here, I mean,
there's got to be some truth to that. Is this guy that big of a scumbag to leave a guy, let him go do prison time?
Listen, there's more than one story, as we both know. Phil has told his, I guess, but I'm a little surprised that, and not knowing exactly what happened there, but I'm a little surprised that Phil didn't try and go to bat for him a little bit. Well, Phil didn't get a little bit more trouble, because they both were guilty of it. I don't know how that all worked or how it came about, but yeah, it's funny that you say that, because years and years ago, when I was a younger guy, either, when Norman and Faldo were kind of head to head, I always liked to root for Norman, right? I always found Faldo to be twitchy, slow, no personality, things like that. And then, funny enough, I was listening to a podcast last week when I was driving, and it was with Faldo, with Sky Sports podcast, and it was great. And he kind of opened up about a few things about the major wins and whatnot. I kind of thought to myself, I kind of think I like Faldo more than I like Norman now. It just gets, my mind just kind of changed, just because I listened to that podcast, because they seemed a little bit more human in that element. There's more going on in his brain than anybody would ever know, because it doesn't give much away. But yeah, I mean, I think that Billy Walters' book was fantastic, and how his way would think about things, and he could have been successful in anything, but just the fact that he was willing and able to go broke
that many times.
that many times. Like in the first 3 chapters, he'd made a ton of money and going broke again. The guy was fearless.
Beemer, I love that book so much. I loved in a lot of the same weird ways that I love your book with Steve Duplantis. Obviously, have nothing to do with each other as far as plot's concerned, but just the wittiness of it. That's what I'm going with. It's you could tell as you're reading this book, this is real. Reading Jim Bouton's Ball 4 did the same thing for me. And those are great books, and they're real.
Yeah, they're real stories about real people, And again, right into for me, gambling standpoint. Yeah, from a gambling standpoint, Phil is probably the most fearless guy I know, and that's why I think why he and Billy kind of were connected. Because I mean, from a sheer golfing standpoint, I think Phil Mickelson is one of the most remarkable players ever. Because the guy never backed down once. He didn't back down once. I can't remember the last time I saw him pitch out when he could have, or if he had a chance to win and he was in a predicament. The U.S. Open that he lost so famously with the double bogey at the 72nd hole of Winged Foot. When he got done, he says, I'm an idiot. And I was just trying to think, he's probably one of the best wedge players in the game. He's got his second shot. Why didn't he just wedge out to the fairway? Turns out that it wasn't quite the opening that there wasn't nearly the opening that I thought he had when I asked his former caddy, Bones, about it. But again, he's a gambler. Phil's a gambler, and he goes for everything. The shot that he hit at 13 here, where he won the Masters for the second time, I believe.
It's the best shot on my life.
And
it's a pure gambler. Right. He'll never, even Phil or you would not make that. There was no other.
Listen,
it's crazy.
He's just going to sit there and, but that's just how he does everything on a daily basis. I don't think that he convinced, I truly believe that he convinced himself that this can be done and be damned. It's not, there's no way I can fail by doing this. And after all the times that he's failed, he's got kicked out, he just gets back up again. He just I'm going to go get the next one. It's phenomenal what this guy could do, did, all of it. Again, though, that's where I think that he and Billy Walters Billy Walters had nothing to fear, and Nichols had nothing to fear. I just think that Billy had been kicked around enough where he knew that sometimes you can't go with your gut instinct. You have to go by sheer numbers, and that's what made him a genius when it came to gambling.
This episode of Taking It to the Streets is brought to you by Wrightwood Medical, the leader in used and refurbished medical equipment. Wrightwood specializes in ultrasound equipment, but can also be your vendor of choice when sourcing lower-cost alternatives for your operating room suites, scanning the entire medical spectrum. From single physician offices to larger hospitals, Wrightwood is the lower-cost solution for your everyday medical equipment needs, and all of Wrightwood's equipment comes with warranty. You can reach Wrightwood directly at www.wrightwoodmedical.com. That is with a W, WRIGHTWOOD medical, or 773-848-7100. Again, 773-848-7100. If it's used medical equipment, it's Wrightwood Medical.
All right, a couple of questions I got for you, Beemer, is that golf's funny because the way it's portrayed in Hollywood is fun and jovial and Caddyshack and Happy Gilmore and the like. You get the point. I think that depiction as someone who's a 12 index, just a normal guy like me, couldn't be further from the truth. I think golf is much more tragic. I think it follows much more of a Shakespearean tone than Caddyshack does. I think when someone writes the book on golf, there'll be more tears in the book than pictures of Wang in the parking lot. So, I just think that's my take, though. With that lead in, couple guys I want to talk to you about that I feel are on the tragic, what speaks the broken-hearted Motown song kind of thing. There's a guy from my high school who's on tour now, Nick Carter.
Okay.
I'm sure you know Nick.
I do.
Okay. Nick is on the ledge right now, as you know. Nick is struggling, and it ain't funny. And I block out social media. I couldn't imagine what Nick's going through on that level. And it's going to take me into my second guy, which is Max Homa, who's taking it, I'm sure, in 10 times the level that Nick's taking it.
Yep.
What becomes of the brokenhearted? What becomes of Nick Hardy? Here's a guy who got a 2-year exemption because he played in that Zurich where you play with somebody else. And Davis Riley had monstrous performance and kind of carried Nick. And Nick was the benefactor. Now Nick's been on tour. He's at the end of that 2 years, and boy, is he struggling. Now, I want to take it to a third, just if I may, is Michael Kim missed 18 cuts in a row after winning, I believe, the John Deere in Silvis. And he went out just an awful, and this guy is playing unbelievably. Where does the rubber meet the road? How does Nick get out of this? How does Homa get out of this? I love both those guys, but I'm being honest, I don't see how do they get out of it?
It's funny. Now we could have a 2-hour discussion about all of this because I find that question so fascinating. So I'm going to defer real quick I'll do one real quick one. How does Victor Hovland, who shot 80 the first round of the Players Championship, had a decent round the second day, and all of a sudden the next week he wins? I mean, he hasn't played hardly dead all year long. He hasn't played very good for the better half of almost 2 years now since he won the Tour Championship, with the lone exception of finishing runner-up at the PGA Championship. He's just struggled, and he even said it after that. How he can find a way to win, that's earth-shattering to me. But I'm going to go back to a test case. His name is Michael Campbell. Michael Campbell won the U.S. Open at Pinehurst back in 2005.
Wasn't that the kid from New Zealand or something?
He is. Now, Michael Campbell has probably the most yo-yo career, I think, of all time. And I'd have to go back and look at some of the stats because I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. But I know that he had a peak, and I think it was 1995 when he was playing very well at the Open Championship at St. Andrews and struggled the last day. He was training that way. Then he went down to a valley. Then he came back and peaked again in 2005. And then won all kinds of stuff in 2005, and then went flat again for another 2 or 3 years, and then went out and won a bunch of tournaments again, like 4 years later. I don't understand how guys can yo-yo like that. When you're so far down where you're talking about some of the guys are right now, to continue to get kicked in the teeth by this game when you're trying to make a living at it, it's the hardest thing to do. You've got to have a massive reset somehow. You've got to forget. You have to have the ability to forget. Going back to Mickelson. Mickelson probably has the best case of amnesia I've ever seen on an individual in my life because he's got the ability to forget anything. I think that you have to have that. Max Homa, when everything was going great, he was on Twitter, he was this and that, he was the king of the world. And all of a sudden, he's gotten off of social media because I'm sure he's getting battered on it for playing horribly as it plays.
He's been terrible. I love Max. He's just been terrible.
He hasn't been good. And where he's at right now, equipment change, firing his caddy. The caddy part of it, to me, I think was a massive mistake. I know that you're always looking to change things up, but you cannot get rid of the guy who stood by you when things are going great. And when things are going bad, he's going to be probably standing even closer to you because he wants the best for you. He's seen the best of you. He wants you to get back there, not because of the money situation, but he knows how much the game means to Max. For him to let his caddy go, I think was a massive, massive mistake. But then again, all caddies get fired. But I think that you have to take a break from the game at some point in time. You have to walk away and give yourself a mental reset. You have to go away. Don't leave your clubs at home. Do whatever. You have to escape this game somehow, and you have to go back and try and find the joy in it. Because when you're doing this for a living, Andy, like for me, when I shot 60, 65, this thing was ringing off the hook. When I shot 75, crickets, with your phone. And that gets to you at some point in time. And I think every player goes through it. I think Max is good enough. He's talented enough. I think he'll get back. But for Nick, I don't know. There's a couple of guys, Derek Ernst, name pulled out of the hat. He won out of nowhere at Quail Hollow and then disappeared. He could, I don't even know where he's playing that anymore. If he's even playing. I mean, this game is so fickle.
But in the spirit of Nick Hardy, is it more crushing mentally that he's missing the cut by like a stroke? I follow him. So he's not embarrassing himself finishing 6-8 lengths off of the cut. He's right there. Or is that even worse? Because it shows that you are really
listen, missing the cut is missing the cut. I mean, I don't think it matters. I mean, I know that I can't tell you how many cuts I missed right on the number. And that just gets excruciating because what happens is you tend to find yourself there a lot. You tee up on Thursday and you're already thinking of the cut line. Instead of going out there and trying to contend and be in the tournament, your mind immediately reverts to the cut line, which is a death. That's just a killer.
Right.
But, I don't think in Max's case, I'd rather see him play horrible because if the numbers are that bad, you can fix that. You can get past that. I don't think that the equipment is the big deal. I don't think that I don't know where he's at mentally. I don't know what's kind of going on. Could be anything. It could be off the golf course stuff. It could be stuff, with his family. It could be friends. Could be anything. But I think that, he's already struggled once before when he first got on tour, and then all of a sudden he had a great burst, and now he's struggling right now. I think he'll figure out a way out of it.
already it's getting tougher.
Nick Hardy's gonna be tougher. It's not gonna be easy for Max either, but it's still gonna take a lot of work and a lot of, mental energy to get past it all. But again, though, I mean, if you can do it, if Max only did it once, he can do it again. There's no doubt in my mind. And with Nick, it's just a confidence thing. It's just kind of waking up and say, listen, I'm not going to think about the cut. I'm going to go out there and try to win this tournament. And you kind of have to change your mental perspective on when you're struggling a little bit. But if he's only missing the cut by one, then he's playing halfway decent, right? Because he's within basically 10 strokes of the lead after 36 holes each and every week. He just has to be like, okay, shift my mindset to I want to go out there and I'm going to take it to this golf course. I'm going to play smart, but I'm going to play aggressive, things like that. But listen, when you're not playing very well, man, there's nothing that wears worse on you because as each week passes that it's not going your way, and you just kind of feel the world kind of just enclosing on you, and it's no fun.
No. What do you make of Full Swing?
I haven't seen it. I watched the first season of it, kind of. I don't know. I guess I kind of live in that world anyways, a little bit. I'm not, unless there was more of a human story to it other than the fact that, guys flying around their private airplanes and things like that, show me the guys that aren't the best in the world. Show me the guys that like Nick Hardy. Show me the guys that are struggling at the moment. That's when you're going to say
it would be more fascinating.
I think more fascinating. Absolutely. It's not that Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas didn't struggle for a little bit while this thing's going down. Ricky Fowler as well, things like that. But show me the guys that are going to be 101 to 105 in July.
Well, I don't know if you saw it, Beemer. There was that on this to this conversation. There was a Full Swing episode that really was amazing. I think it was in the second season, about the mental side of the game, which is probably 80% of the game. And it basically chronicled Wyndham Clark versus Joel Damon. And Wyndham Clark embraced the mental side of it and got himself a mental coach and went through the rigors, put the work in. Joel didn't. Wyndham goes on, I believe, wins the U.S. Open. Joel is still kind of languishing. Joel's playing better now than he had 12 months ago. But, Wyndham's won a major. Joel hasn't. That's where I'm kind of going with this. One embraced it, one didn't. How many guys on tour? I would think Joel's an outlier, that 90% of guys on tour have some kind of shrink or mental coach that gets them through it.
Shrink. Yes, exactly. I think that there's, you're probably right on that. I'd probably say there's probably 80-90% of guys, somebody to chat to, things like that. But not everybody really wants or needs that. I mean, I had 1, 2, 3 that I know of, and I'm sure I talked to more than that One of them still really close. Two of them are still really close buddies of mine. I think that what these guys get out of it more than anything else is not what goes on inside the ropes. It's dealing with everything outside the ropes and not letting the outside, what's going on outside the ropes, come in and disrupt you on the inside when you're inside the ropes. I think that when you have people tugging on you left and right sometimes, when you do have the success, sometimes guys can get overwhelmed by that. I think that when guys talk about, trying to stay in the moment and blah, 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 they're basically trying to zero everything else out of their lives other than what's going on here. Not thinking about the wife that's back home struggling today with the little one at the house because they're sick, or mom and dad are bad health. You've got anything in your personal life. That's what those guys are mostly there for. Now, granted, there's some guys, I'm sure those guys, psychologists, would be like, oh, that's bullshit, blah, blah, blah. Listen, that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to find a way to keep what was going on outside the ropes out there so I could just sit there and do what I do best, inside the rope. And that's hard. Not everybody can do that, separate church and state, but that's what you got to do. And I think that's where sports psychologists really can help some guys, is just by kind of breaking down what makes this player tick or makes that player tick. I'll give you one more quick one, and then sadly I got to go. But I took I forget what year it was, but I took a personality test, Andy, through my good friend Bruce Crowley, and I didn't know what to expect. I was actually turned on to him by my instructor. He says, "I want you to take this personality test, kind of see what happens." And what I found out about myself was mind-boggling. I'm like going, I'm more of an introvert. Like, I would rather, I don't like going out. Seriously, I don't like going to crowded places. I don't like going to, if you want me to go to a cocktail party, I'd rather not. Especially
You're not
if I
grabbing the mic to do Hollywood Nights by Bob Seger.
don't want to do any of that. And if I do, I promise you, I'm going to drink. I'm probably going to drink probably more than I should, because I just need to numb myself. I need to just not be there because I just don't like it. It's just not my scene, right? And so what I found was, funny enough, is that I used to, when I was traveling on the road, I used to invite my caddy, who's still my best friend. We would rent 2-bedroom hotels and things like that, or an apartment and this and that. And what I found, though, is that I kind of like my time away from even him at times, because I spent more time with him than I did my wife and kids for 14 years. Same thing with him. And I think we both enjoyed our time away. That way you can kind of start fresh the next day. You're not going to get off the golf course and then go hang out and then go sleep in the same area, and then act like nothing, there's nothing new to sit there and chew about. So I took a personality test, and I think right after that, I played extremely well. And so I think it made me understand who I am more, and what made me tick. And I loved it. And I want to take another one now to see how much I've changed a little bit over the years. And I'm going to take one, I got to get a hold of him and have him send to me again. But I think a lot of players who are struggling would absolutely, I think would help them out in leaps and bounds. I think that would be a massive, massive help, because it teaches you who you are. You might think you know who you are or what you like, but what I found is, you're right. I don't like going to these big social functions. My wife wants to go out and meet these folks. I could care less. I'll do it in small increments. I'll do it, with a couple of groups here and there, and do it that way. But I don't want to go make small talk in a big room of 50 people, because I'm going to get, it's just on me, and I'm going to get bombarded with questions. So I usually bombard myself with Kettle One before I go do these things. I'm not going to lie. I just, but I would rather, I can do things in small doses, but I just don't like, even walking around Augusta, it's funny. I'd rather just be out in the content center, or that's what we call where we work, content center. I'd rather just be out there amongst the people that I know and I love, instead of walking around and seeing people that I know and that I like, that I've known over the years. I can do that for a very brief few minutes, but after about 30 minutes, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. It doesn't, my brain just doesn't like it. And I don't like it. So it's very interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. And so I just think that, and it not just comes to golf, but I think anybody in business who, if you really want to get to know what makes you tick and to make you more efficient, take a personality test. Mine was the Berkman Method questionnaire, and I loved it. And I'd do it again in a millisecond. I can't wait to do it again. But I just think it's amazing. I think I suggest it for anybody. Yeah, it really opened my eyes. Like, oh my gosh! Like I said, I played amazing. Probably the first 3 weeks afterwards, I felt so refreshed. My brain was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that makes all the difference in the world. So I would suggest that for a lot of folks. But again, going back to these guys, I would tell them to take a personality test. I think it's amazing. It worked amazing things for me.
Interesting. All right, Beemer, before we go, we're obviously going to get you to step out on this Masters. Let me go first. I want you to give me, I want to put something in your head. I want you to give me your 1 and your 2, the exacta, that we're going to do on Sunday. I will start so the Beemer can think here for a second. I put golfers in a bucket in my brain that I feel are like, and that the media kind of doesn't represent as being like samples. They like to make one better than the other. What do I mean? I think Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler are very much the same guy. So whoever would be of the higher odds, I would be interested in betting on. I think Bryson DeChambeau and Xander Schauffele, this is just my brain, are the same guy. That's my comp. I think Russell Henley and Brian Harman are the same guy. Okay?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Okay. So the media just doesn't like Brian Harman, and they just don't. He's comes off standoffish and cold, and the media likes the guy like Henley, who's a quick putter and keeps the game going quick. Just my narrative of how I think they're represented. Brian has a little bit of sadness to him. Like his win yesterday is tainted in sadness with the accident that occurred with his child.
Yeah, sure.
He wins the British Open. His family's not there when he walks off the green. There's a sadness attached to this guy. I'm not making it up, Rich. I mean, that's just my perception of it. And then Brian has this sadness that's exuded that Henley doesn't. Now, I think Brian's better than Henley. So if you could bet this stuff, Brian's always going to be 25-1. Henley's going to be like 17-1. Okay, so that's just where I'm going. Let me fast forward to where I'm going with my winner of this thing. I think that Ludwig Oberg, Joaquin Niemann, and Akshay Bhatia are the same. Okay?
Okay.
On talent, on sheepskins on the wall, everything. Those 3 guys. Let me repeat that.
Okay.
Akshay, Oberg, and Niemann.
Okay.
Currently, Oberg, is 18-1 to win it, which I think is obnoxious. Niemann's 28-1. I think that's borderline obnoxious. Akshay is 60-1. We know where I'm going. I like Akshay to win this thing. So I think Akshay, I'm also a big believer in the spread between an elevated event and a non-elevated event. Akshay's proven that he can win an elevated event. He won the Genesis. That's an elevated event. So I'm big on the credibility you glean by beating better.
Ludwig won the Genesis.
What's that?
Ludwig won the Genesis.
No, my bad. Ludwig won the Genesis. Akshay was 9th, I believe, at the Genesis. Yes, he was tied for 9th at the Genesis. And he wasn't he top 10 at the Players?
Yeah, I believe so.
Might have been 3rd. So we get the point. So my point is those 3 are younger guys. They are very much equal. One guy 18-1, one guy 60-1. I'm leaning towards Akshay. Word on the street is there's a lefty bias at Augusta. Ghosts of Mike Weir, ghosts of Phil Mickelson, ghosts of Bubba Watson. I mean, there's lefties that because I guess there's a cut shot bias for a lefty. I like Akshay here, Beemer. I mean, I do. So that's my on top. I'm going to go with Akshay. My number 2 is Cam Smith because I've always liked Cam Smith, and I think he's kiting out in the LIV and playing very well. And I want to throw something out to the listeners. Last weekend, they played at the Doral. The LIV did. Yeah. And the LIV, there was 3 rounds. They played a 3-round tournament. The 3rd round, if you really did your homework on this on that tournament as well as into the Masters was the easy round. Okay. That's where guys were out there scoring. The first 2 rounds played tougher.
Yeah.
The Rail in and of itself is a tough track. So I'm really looked at the 3rd round because I think the weather's going to be spectacular this weekend at Augusta, and I think it's going to play easier in general because of the sweet conditions that these guys are going to get for this tournament. So I was big on how the 3rd round at last week's Live at the Rail played. There's only 3 guys that like playing in the easy stuff. Those 3 guys were Schwartzel, who's currently 400 to 1. I repeat that. Charles Schwartzel is 400 to 1, Rich. Are you kidding me? Shot 66 last weekend on Sunday. Cam Smith he shot 70, and Sergio shot 71. Those are the only 3 guys that like the conditions that they're going to get this weekend. Brooks, 73, Rahm, 74, DeChambeau, 75, Phil, 73, Patrick Reed, 74. Throwing all those guys out. They don't want it easy. They want it tough. So, for my 2 cents, I like Akshay on top and Cam Smith behind him. I defer to Rich Beem.
It's so funny because that is way more thought than I put into anything. I mean,
I really like Bill Walters.
Yes, you are. I don't even look at odds. I look at the golf course, look how guys are playing. I mean, I think Ludwig should be 18 to 1. I think that he's going to win this thing, I think, multiple times. Looking at his numbers last year, he was 9 under par on the front 9, but 2 over par on the back 9. That's not going to get it done at Augusta. Looking at some of the numbers this year, I already know who my pick is to win it, and that's Rory. I think that he's in such a great space right now mentally that.
How do you get past him being 0-17 at this tournament?
How do I get past it? Well,
yeah,
I don't know.
Hey, what's this? What changes?
Well, I won a major before Mickelson did, and he was how many? For I don't know how many, right? I mean, and that's just fact. You have to.
It's golf. It's golf. Yeah, no, that number doesn't.
Yeah. It's a number. I would say that if he's over 17, if you had Aaron Judge 0 for 17,
you wouldn't blink. You wouldn't blink.
Do you think he's going to go 0 for 18, or do you think, listen, he's got to go 1 for 18? You're made whole.
Their sides this level. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And the way that he's playing, the way that he's thinking, the way that everything kind of seems to be lining up for him. The win at the Players, even in the playoff, was how he played in some horrific conditions. I thought was amazing. So I don't think he had his best stuff at the Players. So I've got him to win, and then the guy that, and again, I'm not looking at odds or anything like that, but I was reading some information today that we got, and I was looking at this guy's numbers with where he's going. The only reason I didn't pick him number 1 is just because sometimes he struggles with the final round. That's Colin Morikawa, but he's got 2 wins, 2 major championship wins. But if you look at his numbers this year, the strokes gained on all kinds of different levels, putting, around the green, things like that, iron play, proximity, they're all outstanding. And he tends to trend. I mean, this is a golf course, even though he hits it left to right. I think that this is a golf course that he understands, and the distance control that he's got with his irons, I think, are amazing. I mean, I bet more from a passion standpoint than a sheer numbers standpoint, but I can understand, where you're coming from and all that. I think Cam Smith's an excellent. I think Akshay's a great call as well. But I'm going to go with 2 guys I think that have been there and done that in major championships. And I think it's Rory's time. I think it's his time to complete the career Grand Slam. And if it's not his time, then I think that Colin Morikawa gets the 3rd leg of a Grand Slam.
Interesting. Now, Beemer, for the record, I took Shane Lowry last year at the Masters, and my runner-up was Siwoo Kim. Lowry went 40th. Siwoo went 34th. Lowry went on to have a really good major season.
Didn't we have a bet last year sometime, and I smoked you?
You beat me. I want to.
Oh, okay.
That was the tour thought. You won. So for the listeners, Beemer absolutely deserves the glory. We haven't been on together. So he had me in the Tour Championship. We were making wagers. So for the record, some people are going to track this. Beemer, you like Rory on top of Morikawa, and I like Akshay over Cam Smith.
Yep.
Who do you like more of, Akshay versus Cam Smith?
Oh,
You could say neither. That's fine.
no, I like Cam Smith more.
Have you watched him at all in the Live?
No, I haven't seen a single thing on Live.
Did you see any of that tournament last week at Doral by chance?
I haven't watched a single shot. I haven't seen a single thing. The only thing I see is every once in a while something that pops up on social media, but I haven't watched a single thing.
All right. Well, we got to have you back to play the majors at a minimum. We got to have.
We'll just do that. Let's do that.
Yeah, we'll play the majors and we'll put some skin in the game next. We'll figure it out.
Beemer,
thanks, brother. I appreciate you coming on.
You got it, my friend. You got it, buddy.
I'm in.
Goodbye from St. Pete. And remember, folks, you're only as good as your last trade, so never too high, never too low, till we meet again.